live, where news comes first. This is ABC-7 Xtra.
Welcome to ABC-7 Extra. Good evening. I'm Maria Garcia. The El Paso City Council tomorrow could make some very consequential decisions related to the current and former city manager. This after it received the results of a much-anticipated independent investigation into the financial advisor search and the ballpark bonds. Mayor Oscar Leeser joining me tonight to discuss this. If you have comments or questions, call us at 915-496-1775. Email us at ABC7extra at KVIA.com or tweet me at Maria G ABC7. First, let's catch you up, though. The independent investigator found City Manager Tommy Gonzalez did not violate the law or his authority when he approved the search for a new financial advisor. There's also no evidence Gonzalez or City Rep Larry Romero would have benefited financially from the city hiring firm Xtra Hinojosa. The investigator did raise questions about the accuracy of Gonzalez's personal financial disclosures. Gonzalez reported 3 honorariums for outside speaking engagements, but he didn't specify the amount. The investigator recommends the council ask Gonzalez to provide documentation on any outside pay and check if his financial disclosures are current and if there are any conflicts of interest. There's also a possibility the council could ask for Gonzalez's personal phone records to check if he had any contact with any vendors. And now to the ballpark financing. The report says former city manager Joyce Wilson refused to cooperate with the investigator, withholding critical information, though her attorney is denying that. Through an open records request, we found out City Manager Joyce Wilson delayed the issuance of the ballpark bonds for the 2013 mayoral election. Now, this latest investigation says Wilson may have been politically influenced. The city got a bad financing deal for the ballpark, losing out on up to $27 million. According to the report, Wilson insisted no one did anything wrong, but when pressed, refused to name the several city reps who brought up the idea of delaying the issuance for the election. But all the city reps from that time say they did not ask Wilson to delay the issuance, so either someone here doesn't remember or is lying. Now, Wilson and her supporters have said you cannot prove Wilson's delay is what caused the city to lose $27 million because in June 5th specifically, you see it here, the contractor building the ballpark told the city it needed more money, which created further delay. Now, the report does show, though, that Wilson could have and was scheduled to bring the bond issuance to council on April 30th here, but didn't. And she delayed despite warnings from the financial advisor saying it was risky. Now, the election was May 11th. You see it right there. The council could decide on Monday whether to subpoena Wilson or ask the Attorney General to investigate.
Is that legal action against Ms. Wilson?
Well, that's what I'm saying. We want to get recommendation from our attorney. Our attorney has not had the opportunity to look at this.
Wilson's attorney took issue with Ross Fisher's ethics investigation report, saying it's not true that Wilson refused to cooperate with the investigation. In a letter to the investigator, Wilson's attorney, Mary Stillinger, wrote, quote, I believe the false statement was made in bad faith for the purpose of putting Ms. Wilson in a negative light with the public. I am demanding that you immediately correct your false and malicious statement. Now, we spoke with Stillinger. She says Wilson had nothing to hide and Fisher didn't give them enough time to answer his questions.
It's a very reasonable request to say, we need more time to answer this. Mr. Fisher never got back to me. He said, my deadline is close of business Monday. He never got back to me and said, would you like more time? So the average person looking at this refuses to cooperate. She's hiding something. That would be what the average person would think, and that is not the case.
Now, Ross Fisher stands by the accuracy of his report, saying Stillinger did write to him, saying she could not let Wilson answer his questions. Now, in a letter to Stillinger obtained by ABC-7, he said, quote, I do not believe Ms. Wilson acted unilaterally in delaying the issuance of the bonds. I believe her when she writes she acted at the request of others. I was merely seeking help in identifying the parties who are ultimately responsible. I will gladly update the relevant portion of my report should you allow Ms. Wilson to respond to my inquiry. The residents of El Paso would all benefit from her answers, end quote. And joining us now is Mayor Oscar Leeser. Hi, Mayor. That was a long introduction because we had to get our viewers caught up on everything. There's been a lot going on.
And there is a lot going on, and we look forward to moving forward to try to put this behind us, and that's going to be the the reason why we have a meeting tomorrow is to work together to put an end to this.
Thank you so much for joining me here, Mayor, before your important meeting tomorrow. Let's start with the portion about City Manager Tommy Gonzalez. The report found he did not abuse his authority in the search for a new financial report. Some city reps have said that throughout this process they've lost trust in him. You also had some questions. You brought forward the idea of an investigation. Do these findings restore trust in the city manager, at least on your part?
Well, remember, the investigation wasn't to try to find something wrong, but to find what was going on, and that's really important. So, the key to tomorrow's meeting, and we'll refer to it quite a bit, I'm sure, tonight, but the key to tomorrow's meeting is how does City Council move forward, and can City Council regain trust, and then how do we move forward and with the trust of the public? That's the real important questions moving forward for tomorrow.
And did this report help solidify your trust for the city manager?
I think it answered some questions of whether what the charter says and doesn't say and how we can move forward. But there's still some questions that council want to have answered. And that's, when we're going to meet tomorrow, everyone's going to bring their ideas to see how we can move forward. So there's still some questions that still need to be answered. The report did show that he was acting within the city manager's scope and that nothing illegal was done. So that's something very important, absolutely.
Right, and speaking of the questions that the report does raise, it raises questions about his personal financial statement, saying Mr. Gonzalez didn't specify the amounts of some of the honorariums that he reported, saying it's unclear if they're only for lodging, transportation, meals, which are the only reasons that a public servant can receive honorariums. Mr. Fisher says the council can ask for proof of any outside consulting pay that Mr. Gonzalez has received since becoming city manager. Are you inclined to ask for that?
Well, remember when we released the book, we made a commitment to the media and the public that we're going to release the book prior to really having consultation with our attorney. So tomorrow we'll have the ability to talk to our attorney and see what's the best way to move forward and all the items that were in the report. We wanted to be very transparent and we wanted to show the book and allow everyone to look at the same thing we were looking at, basically at the same time.
Mm-hmm. The report also in the report, Mr. Fisher says that he reviewed Mr. Gonzalez's city phone records and found that there was no evidence that he communicated improperly with Mr. Hinojosa or any other vendors, but does say he didn't review his personal phone records, says that that's an option council has. And I know you still have to discuss it with your colleagues tomorrow, but you personally, as a mayor of El Paso, if it came down to a tiebreaker or something like this, is that something you would be inclined to ask for of Mr. Gonzalez, his personal phone records?
Well, I don't want to influence anyone's thinking. I think it's important that we all talk as a whole, and for me to say what I would do and what I want done and everything else would not allow council really to make a decision. And they say, well, the mayor's thinking this way and maybe we need to kind of go in that direction. I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that it's an independent conversation moving forward. And but one thing that from the beginning since I took office, that transparency has always been very important, and I, again, releasing the record basically at the same time we got to see it was very important to us, that the public and the media was able to see it at the same time, basically.
Right, and we did receive it Wednesday, soon after you all came back from executive session. The report says there is no evidence that Mr. Gonzalez or Representative Romero would have gained financially in any way had Mr. Hinojosa's firm been hired as the city's financial advisor. But there were some things about the financial advisor search that gave a lot of people some heartburn. I know you had some questions about this, the fact that the city strayed from its regular scoring methods for this particular search, that the CFO, the city CFO, seemingly tainted the people who were judging the vendors by expressing his displeasure with the current financial advisor, that Mr. Gonzalez initially wanted the search done quickly in 3 weeks rather than the 4-week minimum city policy. Are you still concerned by all of that, or did this report put those concerns at ease for you?
It didn't really put them at ease, to be honest with you, but it did give us the ability to correct it, make sure it doesn't happen again. And you know, one thing I say that we will make mistakes and things will happen, but as good leaders, you can take ownership and address them and make sure you change them. So we're going to eliminate that you will ever have group senses when you're evaluating anybody. That will never be possible anymore, because we're going to make sure that's not part of the city charter or city amendment. So we're going to make sure that doesn't happen, and that make sure that we obey by all the items on the charter, so that it put it at ease, no, but it gave us the opportunity to make sure it doesn't happen again.
The El Paso Times, who has been following this story in a lot of ways, leading the coverage in some of this, wrote a scathing editorial essentially calling for the council to end the contract with Mr. Gonzalez, saying he's unfit to lead because he doesn't take responsibility for his actions, in particular for the speed hump in front of Cathedral High School that violated city policy. Do you agree with the Times? Is Mr. Gonzalez unfit to lead the city of El Paso?
No, I don't believe in that. I've been meeting with him quite regularly, even though as this has been going on, I've had daily meetings, and he's very capable of doing the job that he was hired to do. The city council interviewed him, we had the public sector interview him, and we felt that he was very capable of doing the job. Now, biggest issue that we have is, can council work, and can council have the confidence to be able to work together with him? So is he capable? The fair statement would be yes. That's not a fair assessment that he's not capable of doing the job. I agree with you that we do have to take responsibility for actions that we do, and if we're in charge of whether it's 5 people or 5,000 people, we should always take responsibility and make sure what's going on at all times. So I don't agree that we shouldn't take responsibility.
Do you believe Mr. Gonzalez has properly taken responsibility for the speed hump, the financial advisor search, the controversy and the questions over the street paving?
Well, that's a question that we'll answer tomorrow, and I don't want to keep going back that way. But you know, it's do I believe that we've taken full responsibility, or as a whole? I think we have. Now, Mr. Gonzalez needs to continue to take responsibility for the actions. And even if you didn't know what was going on, these are the people that answer to you, and you should always know what's going on, and you should always have a report. And for someone to say that they're not aware or they didn't know, that's never a real answer. The answer is, I will check into it, make sure I have the proper answer. So I believe that that's not a real answer.
Okay. The investigation also revealed Mr. Noe Hinojosa called Representative Romero, and I'm still referring to him as Representative Romero, even though he's resigned, because he's a
holdover.
He's a holdover, right. Now, the investigation, like I said, revealed that Mr. Noe Hinojosa called Representative Romero during the RFQ timeframe, asking for an update about it. That appears to violate the city's cone of silence policy, which prohibits city representatives from having contact with vendors during any kind of vendor search. Does that trouble you? Did that trouble you when you read that?
Well, we need to make sure as representatives of the city that we always follow the law and understand what the law is. You know, saying we didn't know what the law is or we didn't know what the process was is not the real answer. We were elected to represent the community and know what the law is. So it's really important that we obey based on what the law is today, and always make sure we obey by it.
Have you had conversations with Mr. Representative, with Mr. Romero, about the contact between Mr. Hinojosa and him during that time?
No, I have not.
Okay. Representative Romero, at last check, has not answered the questions from the city's ethics commission. He told one of our reporters this week that, he's come on ABC-7 Xtra, and he did. He answered questions where you're sitting for about 45 minutes, that he's held news conferences, and that he's answered journalist questions over and over again already. And he told our reporter, should I still have to answer these questions? But in your opinion, should he in good faith still, even though, yes, clearly he has taken some of these questions, should he still respond officially to the ethics commission, particularly because he's still on the city payroll?
Should she answer the questions? I think the answer should be questioned. The public needs to know, and I think it's important that we answer the questions. I think he did hold, and I think you were probably there, he had about an hour and a half press conference where he answered all the questions, and it's important that we continue to answer the questions. And does the public deserve to know? Absolutely.
Now that Mr. Gonzalez has been found to not have violated city policy, what will you, as the mayor, as essentially the leader of the city in some cases, do to restore the fractured relationship between the city council and the city manager?
And what we did in our meeting on Wednesday was we asked all the city representatives to come back with their ideas of how they feel that we can move forward, and not to make judgment, but actually put down the things they feel they need to be able to work together with Mr. Gonzalez. So everybody will come with their ideas and see how we can incorporate them and see if we can work together, because if we cannot work together as a unit, it won't work, and then we need to move on, because there's so many great things going on in our community. And you know, we've created in the past 24 months, we've either created or retained over 8,100 jobs, and we've had additional investment in El Paso of $500 million, and which we haven't had anything like that in the last 10 years. So it's so important that we continue to move the city forward, and at some point this will start affecting us. You know, we just had the Pope here, which was a great event, and it showed off the region, the city of El Paso, and we need to take advantage of it. So we need to remove this away from us and say, you know what, one way or another, we need to put it behind us and move forward.
Okay, let's go to our phone lines. James from Central, what's your comment or your question?
Hi, my name is James from Central. While I certainly admit that all of these news stories surrounding the current controversies are interesting, they're kind of a distraction from the fundamental needs of El Pasoans now and going forward. So I was hoping the mayor could speak about existing economic development opportunities and any upcoming economic development opportunities that I think would be more relevant to talk about for the benefit of the citizens of El Paso. Thank you.
Okay, James saying that these controversies, while interesting, are a distraction to the fundamental needs of El Pasoans, wants the mayor to talk about economic development opportunities. And I do want to say, you know, we're at every news conference that the city has about economic development opportunities. We cover those issues at City Hall when they come up all the time. But in order to move forward, we're trying to get to the bottom of the answers or the questions that El Pasoans have been writing to us about. But if you want to answer James's question.
Well, I mean, I kind of answered it before he called in, to be honest with you. It was kind of like, you know, if we don't put this behind us, at what point does it start affecting the city? And it starts affecting us, then we go out to talk to companies about relocating. How do we earn your business to come to El Paso? At some point, they have to see the council, city manager, and the mayor working together, or it will affect us. So it's so important that the issue at hand, that we do put it behind us and figure out how we can or we cannot work together, but at some point it cannot continue to linger.
Right, let's go to Carlos on the west side. Carlos, what's your comment or your question?
Mayor, I was just asking, whose idea was it to do away with the city manager's position? Did anybody understand that?
All right, Carlos, you got cut off. Sorry about that. We'll try to. We record these phone calls, so we'll try to fix the problem. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the other part of the investigation report, which explored City Manager Joyce Wilson's actions when she delayed the issuance of the ballpark bonds in 2013. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. We're talking about the city investigation into the financial advisor search and the ballpark bonds. Let's go now to the portion of the investigation that dealt with Ms. Joyce Wilson. Now, Ms. Wilson has said she did nothing wrong. Do you believe Ms. Wilson acted politically when she delayed the bond issuance for the May 2013 election? You
know, that's something, she said that in her email, and it's not for me to say, but in an email, and I think you all did an open records request on that. And that's basically what was stated in that email.
Right. Well, will her supporters interpret that as saying that she didn't delay the issuance of the bonds to protect any candidate running in that race, or for political reasons, but because she didn't want the discussion over the issuance mired by the politics of the election. Do you believe that?
Well, I can tell you that Joyce Wilson did a great job for many years within the city, and one of the things that I want to make sure this doesn't take away from is the great job. I wasn't a huge supporter of the way the ballpark, and there was no secret when I was running for office after I got elected. I was not a great supporter of the process and procedure, but since the ballpark has come to El Paso, it's been an incredible economic boost for our economy, and it's a great, when we go talk to companies, it's they always want to talk about the Chihuahuas. They want to talk about a great impact to the city. So I don't want this to take away from that, but the citizens of El Paso do deserve an answer. There's no ifs and buts about it. But the Chihuahuas, the ballpark, and what it's done for El Paso has been incredible. And the sooner we can get an answer, then we'll continue to move forward. So.
And I think that's been a misconception by some people whom I've spoken to. They say, and Mayor, I want to just sort of be direct, and there
You
are,
always are.
and there are people. There's sort of two camps in this narrative, in this story, right? There's the people who say, you know, this thing about the ballpark bonds, it's just a distraction from what's really happening at City Hall with Tommy Gonzalez, and they're just using it to distract from the real issue, and that's that, you know, there's a city manager that is straying from policy and could potentially bring back the good old boy system. And then on the other side, you have a different camp that says the exact same thing but opposite, right? That says this whole thing about Tommy Gonzalez is just a distraction from the real problem, which is, you know, that the city lost out on $27 million because of the actions of the former city manager. And you know, I've heard people scoff and say, you know, there's people who want us to fire the city manager for a $9,000 speed hump and a search for a financial advisor that an independent investigator found he wouldn't benefit financially from, but you want us to sort of just forget about $27 million that the city lost in ballpark financing that arguably could be traced back to the decision from the former city manager. So there's sort of two camps, and I suspect there's a lot of politics behind both of them.
And there's a third camp, is really by moving forward, we need answers, but are we going to get the money back? Are we going to be able to recuperate some of the money? So how much money are we going to spend to say, wow, we were right? It did happen. I think it's important, and I was the one that wanted to make sure that the financing was done properly. You know, we have the taxable, non-taxable, and then we have a balloon in the financing. And we're looking at refinancing it right now. It won't save us a lot of money, but it'll get rid of a balloon that matures in 10 years. And it's important that we do that because we don't know what the interest rates will be in 10 years, and we have balloon due. So if we can refinance the taxables, the non-taxables, that'll be able to save a little bit of money, we're hoping. I've been talking to the financial advisor, and I've been talking to Dr. Sutter about hopefully being able to do that and bring that forward. But yes, it's important that we find out why it happened. We just can't say, you know what, it happened. We all know the risk of doing it, not doing it. The public deserves an answer. But we don't want to, are we going to spend a lot of money trying to say we're right and cost taxpayers more money? Absolutely not. That's not the right thing to do. So I'm hoping we can put this behind us and say it was not done, whether it was done properly or not. In my opinion, I think that timing is always very important, and we missed our opportunity by not doing it when we were going to do it.
Which was April 30th of 2013. Now, I want to sort of try to get a handle on this. So April 30th, 2013, the council was slated to vote on issuing the bonds. We know from the Braden report that Ms. Wilson decided to postpone that after city reps, whom she has yet to name, raised concerns about the timing related to the election. But we know that June 5th, later that summer, the contractor emailed the city saying $52 million wasn't enough. And there are some who say that the loss of the $27 million can't be blamed on Ms. Wilson's decision to delay for the election, but that there were other factors like the contractor, asking for more money, pretty late into that summer. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, if you remember, right after I took office, they wanted an additional $14 million.
Right.
And I basically said that if they put the money in an account, then we would draw from it, and the city would not change the contract, and we would not move forward. And that became a little bit of controversy right when I first took office. And we came to an agreement that they would put the money in an account. So, it depends how you handle a lot of things. And it's important that we had a contract, we had an agreement, and we were not going to change the contract. And at that point, we needed to move forward and either build the stadium based on their needs and wants, or the city was going to take control and build it based on the agreed amount. So I wasn't in those talks, to be honest with you, but it needed to make sure that, like when I was there, I said, we're done. If you guys want to move forward, if you want to add money to the ballpark, and they did a great job and they spent a lot of money, so it's a great, perfect public-private partnership, but at the end of the day, how was it handled? And from the beginning, I was not a fan of the way a lot of the things went forward.
But bottom line, do you believe that the unfavorable financing was due to the initial delay in April or in June?
Well, if we had financed it in April, the rates would not have changed, and we would have had it would have been a lot more favorable to the city. So, if we, and I think even in the report it says that the financial advisor said there's a risk at any time, and it was said, well, they always say that. Well, they do always say that because there is a risk. You never know.
They're not advising you for.
Well, you know what it is today, and we know what the stock market is today, and if we all knew what it was, and if we all knew what it was going to be tomorrow. We'd all have an opportunity to make a lot of money. So, there is a risk anytime you delay anything. And reason for delaying once it was approved and issued, and it was even in the newspaper saying that bond was going to be issued on a certain date.
Right. Mayor, I have to ask you about this. Some of your colleagues on council, Dr. No was on here a few weeks ago, said that even though they were briefed on the Braden report, which is a report that showed that Ms. Wilson delayed the ballpark bond issuance for the election, that they weren't given a copy of the report during executive session, and that they were briefed, but it was not thorough enough for them to fully understand her actions or the impact of her actions. And there's been insinuations that you and Attorney Sylvia Firth, the city attorney, withheld this report from the city council or didn't fully disclose it thoroughly with them. We have some tweets about that. Marine Vet has actually sent us some, that's his screen name, has sent us tweets saying, Joyce Wilson sent an email to the attorney and was included in the Braden report. Why did mayor not disclose this to the taxpayer? Why did the mayor withhold the information on the delay of bonds in 2013? He knew but did not disclose to the public. Why?
And, and Dr. No is, and I like Dr. No a lot, and he does a great job, and him and I have a great working relationship, but that statement, unfortunately, was not the way it happened. And one of the things I want to make sure I'm always transparent, so I always say, don't hand it to me before. I don't want to be the guy that has it before, and they say, okay, why didn't you let us know? Why were we all shared? So at the end of that executive session, they were all picked up, and the city attorney had it. I did not get a copy, just like any of the city council members did not get a copy. So it was, it was done in executive session. Everybody had the opportunity to ask questions, and everybody had an opportunity to go back to the city attorney and say, I didn't quite understand it. Can I look at it? Can I have a copy to look at? That didn't happen, but we all had the equal opportunity, and I never want to be the guy holding the only copy. I always give it right back to the city attorney, just like they do, because it's just confidential and it goes back. But we talked to the city attorney afterwards. I said, I want to release that. I want to be able to release that report. I want the public to see what we're seeing. One thing you'll see that and I think you'll agree with, I'm 100% transparent, and I want the public, I want the media, I want everyone to see what we're looking at, and not hide behind some of the things that people say, well, you're keeping it and you're hiding behind it. At that point, we were told that we weren't going to release it, give it back to the attorney, and after some of the issues were brought up, and it really was in a discussion at the council that the city attorney kind of brought up the financing and everything else, and we were like, okay, what was that in the report? And then we brought it back and went over and released it.
Right. I think the crux of in the question here is, why did this surface now, though? If you had knowledge of this starting in November of 2013, and I know, you know, you just mentioned, you
We
know,
didn't have knowledge. We all were in the same meeting together.
But the
Dr. No and I had
Braden
the same
report-
knowledge.
But the Braden report was done at your request and was finished in November of 2013.
Right, and it was rolled out to everybody at the same time. Just because I asked for a report, just because I want something done, it doesn't need to be given to me only. And just like the report that you saw this week, I didn't get it ahead of time, and I got it at the same time all the council did it. And that way we all look at it on an equal basis, and then we all agree to release it at the same time. So I'm not accused of withholding information. I'm not accused of having information and no one else had it. We're all equal, and we all have it at the same time, and we all have the same opportunity to look at it and gather the same information.
So why did the council at that time, when you received this report with this, I mean, really important revelation that the financing did not, we knew that in the summer of 2013, but that it was due to the delay for the election. Why not make a push for that to be public? Why not tell your city attorney, look, this is a big deal. I know this is attorney-client privilege, but we have to tell the public about this right now.
We did end up doing that. We ended up talking to the city attorney, and we ended up releasing it to the public. And, you know, was it released immediately? No. Was it released once we felt that everything needed to come out and make sure that the public was aware of it? Absolutely.
Okay, and Jaime Abeitia tweeting at us, there were a lot of candidates in the mayoral race. A runoff was inevitable, delaying for a couple of weeks couldn't help Ortega. And I think, you know, there's been pretty much consensus that that was an unnecessary decision. All right, we're going to take one more commercial break. When we come back, more of your tweets and emails and phone calls. Stay with us. Welcome back. Let's take your phone calls. Bill from the Northeast on the phone. Hi, Bill. What's your comment or your question?
Yes. The reason I'm calling is I was trying to find out the policies of El Paso, and I was trying to find out why Larry Romero gets a paycheck and benefits when you resign or quit a job. I don't think that it's fair to the taxpayers of El Paso to have to pay that out.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Bill wondering why Mr. Romero is still receiving a paycheck and benefits.
And, you know, we agree with Larry, and I mean with Bill, that once someone resigns, but the state statute says that's what happens, and that's how you have to do it until you're a holdover, until your replacement is elected. You continue to get paid, and you have the opportunity at any moment to come back and vote on anything.
Yeah.
So I agreed with Bill.
Yeah, so it's state statute there. And then Otham on the east side. Otham, what's your comment or your question?
Mayor Leeser, my name is Otham Medina, and I'm curious to know if you and council have been in contact with Mayor John Cook, ex-Mayor John Cook, regarding the delay of the issuance of the bonds. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you very much. Oton saying if Mr. Medina, Oton Medina asking if you've been in contact with Mayor John Cook or anyone from the past administration about the delay in the bond issuance. I spoke to former Mayor John Cook. He denies ever having that conversation with Ms. Wilson. She said in the Braden report that she, after several members of City Council brought up the issue or brought up their concern about the bond issuance close to the election, she says she talked to John Cook about it. He says he never had that conversation with her. Miss Ann Lilly, Mayor Pro Tem at the time, said she never had that conversation with her. Have you spoken to any of them?
You know, I have not, and I never want to accuse anybody of any wrongdoing, so I've never even asked them, and I did see the interview that you did with both of them, but I personally have not asked anyone.
Okay, and then let's go to Randy on the east side. Hi, Randy. What's your comment or your question?
Yes, this is Randy from the East Side, and I have a question for you. I would like to know, one, if you can quantify for us, for the viewing audience, we're told when the quality of life bond and ballpark issue was voted on that if we built it, they would come. Would like to know if you can tell the viewing audience just what companies have relocated El Paso, and if you can quantify the economic impact that validates the argument that was made to us voters. You vote for this. If we make this investment in $500 million that build it, they will come. So thank you very much. I hope you can answer my question.
Thank you very much. So he wants to know how many companies have come to El Paso since the quality of life bond passed and the ballpark was built, and if you could quantify the economic impact of that.
And I've kind of covered that a little bit because there's so many great things going on in the city. And one of the things we do when we go talk to companies and we try to earn their business is we go knock on doors across the country, is that the citizens of El Paso invested in themselves $473 million. And that's really been very important as we go out and talk to them, how we're going to have new parks, how we're going to have swimming pools, how our roads are going to improve, and the quality of life for our children and our grandchildren are going to improve. So yeah, we've had either retention and companies. When I first took office, I got a phone call from State Farm, Hoover, Electrolux. They're all leaving El Paso. And I'm going, okay, wait a minute. And I said I was going to lower the unemployment and we're going to create jobs. And I haven't been in office 6 months and I've lost all these companies. But I'm very proud to say in the last 24 months, we've created or retained 8,100 jobs. And we've the economic impact to the city, the investments, is over $500 million or $500 million, and we'll continue to do that. We have a couple announcements coming up in the next couple of weeks. So it's investing in ourselves is a good thing to do. And I know that used home sales across the country is at 7%, and El Paso's 10.1%. So that's 30% greater. And how does that happen? Because people have gotten jobs, have been able to get a paycheck and be able to reinvest and now become homeowners. What does that do for the citizens of El Paso? Now we have people paying taxes in their homes, and now we're able to divide that by a greater amount and hopefully start balancing the taxes. So it's been incredible what it's happened in the last 24 months, and we're looking forward to the next 14 months as we continue to go out and knock on doors and urge people's business to come to our community.
Okay, I want to make sure we get to some of our tweets because we got a lot of people on Twitter and then we're out of time. Calvin says, if the financing isn't right and it still goes through, talking about the ballpark, then the consequences will manifest themselves in future difficulties. Eduardo saying, going forward seems to be code word for don't question, which is why corruption persists. Do you want to address that?
No, going forward is finally answering the questions the citizens of El Paso deserve to know, and they deserve answers, and you cannot go forward. And I think, remember when we were in a commercial, I said, until we take responsibility and we own up to things, you guys will continue to ask questions. How do we move forward? Take ownership, take responsibility, and kind of decide where we're going. Are we going forward or not? Are we going to continue to work together as one or not? So that's really important. And the financing, the last one we're talking about, it's really important that we do look at maybe refinancing and getting rid of the balloon that's in 10 years. We had an option in 4 years to be able to refinance. The taxable, you'll never be able to refinance because it's a 25, 30-year financing, and you got to pay the whole thing to be able to refinance.
Right.
The interest is not even good enough to be able to do that. So that's kind of a bad deal. But the non-taxable and the balloon, we need to change that.
Okay. Eduardo also tweeting, policies are meaningless unless they are, sorry, lost it there. Policies are meaningless unless they are followed by people who have courage to follow them. That doesn't seem to be happening. Jaime saying, how can the mayor say council can work with the city manager if he already demonstrated willingness to subvert process for council favorites?
Jaime, and that's what we have to determine. Can they or can they not? And that's why we're having a meeting. They need to bring things on Monday that they feel they can or cannot work forward, and then as a whole we need to determine. So it's not been predetermined, and that's why when you read articles that says get rid of them, do this, do that, or the newscast says that you know what, he's not fit. You know, that's not proper because...
We didn't say that.
I know.
The Times in an editorial say that.
It's very important that we go in with an open mind and not really dig our heels before we get the opportunity to talk as a whole and say, yes, will it work, or no, it won't work. And if it doesn't work, what do we need to do to move forward? So Jaime, you're right. We have not determined that, and we're hoping to do that in hopefully tomorrow or in a very, very near future. So as one of the comments was made, move forward, but answer questions, not move forward and say, we don't want to answer questions, we don't want to take responsibility. That's not the right thing to do.
Okay, Mayor, we're out of time.
I'm not ready to go. I'm really, this is great, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about such an important issue that, I mean, if I could stay here another hour, I would, because this is that important. And I appreciate having the opportunity. And I know I tease you a little bit, and I say, be nice to me. You do a great job. And I stay up every Sunday, and I tell you that when I see you on Monday and Tuesday, I go, hey, great job you did. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate your accessibility.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us here on ABC 7 Extra. We hope you found this informative, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.